Don't go in. The roof's about to collapse. With someone yelled through the smoke, but she rushed in, barefooters mixing with ash and heat, carried the boy out, vanished before anyone could ask her. Namuho was that woman. And why would a billionaire return 20 years later looking only for her? Emily Sanders, 29, worked as an emergency dispatcher in the small town of Bedford, Maine. Her voice was the calm in the midst of Chris's steady, reassuring first line of response when disaster struck. Years of handling emergency had trained her to maintain composure when others couldn't. A single mother with a 5-year-old daughter, Emily lived a quiet life, her apartment walls decorated with her child's colorful drawings and a single worn photograph of her father in his firefighter uniform. She kept to herself, preferring night shifts when her daughter stayed with a neighbor, an arrangement that made childcare possible in her limited income. What most Bedford residents didn't know is that Emily carried a shadow within her, memory of her father, firefighter, who died saving children from a burning daycare center when she was just 12. His last words to her had been simply, always do right, Emmy. When the moment comes, you'll know. That moment arrived on a frigid December night in 2005. Emily was driving home after her shift, clock on her dashboard reading 2:17 am, when she noticed an orange glow illuminating the snow-laden trees along River Road. Slowing down, she saw thick black smoke billowing from a wooden cabin partially hidden by pine trees. Her dispatcher instincts kicked in. She pulled over, grabbed her phone, and dialed 911. Structure fire at 42 River Road. She reported to her colleague, now manning the desks in all available units. As Emily approached the house, the heat intensified through the ground floor windows. Spotted movement, a small boy, perhaps 6 years old, pounding on the glass, screaming silently behind the thick beneath doorframe, was already engulfed in flames. A small crowd had gathered, neighbors and hastily thrown on coach, hopelessly watching the inferno. Someone was shouting about propane tanks in the back. Another voice mentioned the fire department was at least 8 minutes away. There's a child inside, Emily yelled, but the gathered neighbors only stared in horror. An older woman grabbed Emily's arm. "Are you crazy? You have a daughter at home. Wait for the firefighter's hand trembled as she pulled away. Her father's face flashed before her. How many times had she imagined his final moments rushing into flames while others ran out, had sworn of her to put her daughter through that same loss. But the boy's terrified face pressed against the window, illuminated by the dancing flames behind him, broke something open inside. "Heard it, one more child," she whispered. "Rednet, if I can help it." Amon's voice cut through the crackling flames. "Don't go in." The roof's about to collapse. Emily stripped off her heavy coat, wrapped it around her arm, and kicked off her shoes. Snow bit at her bare feet, but she barely noticed. Time seemed to slow as she circled to the side of the house where the fire hadn't yet reached. Finding a window with less smokish, used her coat-wrapped arm to smash the glass. Jag shards tore through the fabric, slicing into her forearm, but adrenaline dulled the pain. Smoke poured out, and Emily pulled herself through the opening, dripping to her knees. Incidito, stay below the thickening black cloud. "Hello, here are you?" she called, crawling forward. The heat scorched her lungs with each breath. A faint cry guided her through the disorienting haze. She found the boy huddled under a table, paralyzed with fear. His pajamas were singed, his face streaked with soot and tears. "I'm going to get you out," Emily promised, said, peeling him close. "Cover your mouth with this." Tore off part of her shirt sleeve and pressed it to his face. They made their way back toward the window. A section of ceiling collapsed behind them, sending embers cascading across the floor. Millie lifted the boy through the broken window, then climbed out after him. Just as flames began licking at the curtain, she carried him across the yard, her bare feet numb on the frozen ground. As neighbor rushed forward to take the chill, the distant wail of sirens finally pierced the night. Millie set the boy down, gently disappeared into her car, and drove away before anyone could ask her name. She left behind were footprints in the snow-singed flip-flops by the broken window and a homemade cotton bracelet that had slipped from her wrist during the rescue. At times, true heroes don't need recognition. They simply do what's right and quietly disappear. Have you ever met someone like Thathbur, rescued from the fire, was named Luke Wilson, an orphan living with his grandmother after losing both parents in a car accident the year before. The fire caused by faulty Christmas light shade started while his grandmother was working the night shift at the local hospital, leaving Luke alone in the housing the days following. His rescue Luke became withdrawn, speaking only when necessary. The trauma of the fire lingered in his eyes, but something else did too. An obsession with the woman who had saved him. Luke began drawing the same figure, reputed woman with a ponytail, tears on her face and distinctive markings on her left arm. Guardian angel would whisper when asked about his artwork. His grandmother kept these drawings, amazed at how consistent the details remained despite Luke's young age. Cotton bracelet became his most prized possession. Thaw, singe, and dirt. I kept it in a small wooden box beneath his bed, occasionally taking it out just to hold it when his therapist asked why the bracelet was so important. Luke simply said, because she chose to come back from Ewan, she could have stayed safe. Meanwhile, Emily's life unraveled in quietancing. Waist deep cut on her arm required 15 stitch, which she claimed came from a kitchen accident. The second-degree burns on her hands and forearms were harder to explain, forcing her to take unpaid leave from the dispatch center. Her absence during a critical emergency very fire she had responded tourist questions when security footage from nearby gas stations revealed her car in the vicinity. Her supervisor called her in. You abandoned your post. Emily, you went off duty without proper handover procedure. Was heading home, she replied, hiding her bandaged arms under the tabli. I saw the fire and called it in, but the timeline didn't match her story. Emily received a formal reprimand and her already precarious financial situation worsened. Unable to type efficiently with her injured hand, she eventually resigned from her dispatcher position, finding night work at a bakery where the owner didn't ask too many questions about her scars. Emily never regretted her decision. On difficult nights when her daughter Eskedwe, they had to move to a smaller apartment. Mommy worked nights and slept days. Emily would look at the burn scars on her arms and remember the boy's facet. That was enough. She never sought recognition, never told anyone about that night. Scars became her private testament, evidence of the moment she had honored her father's memory, be choosing to run toward danger rather than away from it. Years passed. Luke's grandmother died when he was 14, leaving him to navigate the foster system. Against all odds, he excelled in school, particularly in computer science. By 18, he had created his first successful app. 22, his startup had attracted major venture capital. By 26, Luke Wilson had become Luke Harrison, his grandmother's maiden name. Billionaire, founder of Security Net, a cybersecurity firm that had revolutionized data protection in 2024, nearly 20 years after the fire. Emily, now 49 and still working at the same bakery, received an unusual phone call while preparing the morning's first batch of pastries. This Emily Sanders? A male voice asked. Eyes. Who's calling at 4am? You lived in Bedford in 2005. Correct. Emily felt a chill that had nothing to do with the pre-dawn February air. Who is this? Do you still have that cotton bracelet? Hung up immediately, her hands trembling. Emily had never mentioned the bracelet to any, and how could a stranger know about it after all these years? The next morning, an unmarked envelope appeared at her apartment. Inside was a grainy photographs had never seen before, showing her carrying a small boy away from a burning house, her ponytail distinctly visible despite the smoke. Simeon had been there. Simeon had seen her that evening while folding laundry with the television on for background noise. Emily froze at the sound of a familiar name. A special report featured America's youngest tech billionaires with Luke Harrison as the centerpiece. Interviewed camera panned across his sleek face, focusing on the handsome young man. Wo's boyish features still held echoes of the child she remembered, but what made Emily drop her laundry basket was the small wooden box visible on the shelf behind him, identical to the one her father had carved for her as a child. Mr. Harrison, the interviewer, asked if you could go back in time, what's the one thing you would most want to? Dolka's expression softened, a revealing vulnerability beneath his polished exterior. I'd find the woman who saved my life during a house fire when I was 6. I'd give her back what should have been hers all along. Camera lingered on his face before cutting to commercial, but Emily remained frozen, a coffee mug slipping from her finger, sand shattering on the floor. Much like the careful anonymity she had maintained for 2 decades, she never sought credit, never wanted recognition, but now, it seemed, recognition was seeking her. At night, Emily couldn't sleep. She stood before her bedroom mirror, examining the silvery burn scars that wrapped around her left forearm like a roadmap of that fateful night. For years, she'd hidden them under long sleeves, even in summer. They were her private reminder, never meant to be seen by the world. Her daughter, now 25 and living in Boston, called the next day. "Mom, there's something weird going on. A private investigator contacted me asking about you and some fire in 2005. What's this about?" Emily sank into her chair. "It's an old story. Swisha, nothing important." "Well, it must be important to somebody." "Mention a billionaire is looking for you after hanging you." Emily opened her bedside drawer and removed a small wooden box twin to the one she'd seen in Luke's office. Inside lay a simple cotton bracelet, blackened at the edges, a child's craft project that had somehow become the thread connecting past to present. "The view ever been forgotten after doing the right thing? Do you think anyone would come back to say thank you after 20 years?" Emily's quiet life imploded almost overnight. A local reporter discovered her identity through town records and published a speculative piece. Bedford's mystery heroical woman may have saved tech billionaire. Soon her apartment building was surrounded by news vans. Former colleagues from the dispatch center gave interviews, expressing shock that mild-mannered Emily Sanders had secretly performed such a brave act. The manager of Bedford's fire station, where Emily's father had once served, told reporters, "I protected her privacy all these years, but I'm amazed this story is finally coming to light." Millie stopped answering her door, called in sick to the bakery, and drew her curtains. The tension felt like a violation of something sacred. Her private act of courage turned into public spectacle without her consent. "I never wanted Thish," told her daughter over the phone. "He just did what anyone would have done." A mom that everyone would run into a burning building. Barefoot, and this guy spent 20 years trying to find you. Don't you think you should at least talk to him?" Emily remained resolute in her silence even as social media exploded with the hashtag Find Emily Bedford. Some praised her heroism, others questioned her motives for remaining anonymous. So long, amateur sleuths dug into her employment history, discovering her disciplinary record from the dispatch center. Sudden liar reasons for leaving that job became fodder for conspiracy theories. Maybe she was running from something else. On popular thread suggest we hide a good deed unless you're hiding bad ones too. Speculation stung more than the burns ever had. In a rainy August morning in 2005, Bedford's usually quiet Main Street erupted with activity as 4 gleaming black SUVs pulled up outside the town's modest fire station. Security personnel in dark suits emerged first, scanning the gathering crowd before opening the rear door of the second vehicle. Luke Harrison stepped out, this casual attire, jeans and a simple button-down shirt, at odds with his estimated $2 billion net worth. Camera flashes illuminated his face. He nodded politely to onlookers. "Mr. Harrison, are you here about Emily Sanders?" Reporters called out. Luke raised a hand, asking for quiet. "You've come to speak with Mayor Collinson Fire Chief Peterson." After that, he'll make a statement. The meeting lasted less than 30 minutes. No. When Luke emerged, the town officials flanking him were expressions of stunned disbelief. "Citizens of Bedford," Luke began, his voice carrying across the now silent crowd, "20 years ago, I was a scared 6-year-old trapped in a burning house on River Road." Every expert who reviewed the case later confirmed had less than 2 minutes before the fire would have reached Meath Fire Department. Despite their best efforts, was still 7 minutes away. Paused, emotion briefly overwhelming him. Simeon made the difference between those numbers. Simone chose to risk everything for a child she didn't know. Lurk gestured to an assistant. "Whoa, set up a portable screen. This footage has never been shown public." Light video, grainy but clear enough, showed Emily carrying Luke from the burning house site. Had been recorded by a neighbor's security camera, positioned just right to capture the moment she emerged from the smoke. Her Hair-singed feet bleeding determination etched on her face for 20 years. I've searched for this woman, hired investigators cross-referenced hospital records for burn treatment, interviewed every witness, and, finally, I found her still in Bedford, still working night shift, still hiding her scars under long-sleeved crowd murmured as Luke continued. I'm here today to announce that I've purchased the Bedford fire station and surrounding property. Town council has approved my plan to rebuild it as a state-of-the-art emergency response center with one condition, that it be named after the woman who showed me what true courage looks like. As rippled through the crowd, the Emily Sanders Emergency Response Center will be the most advanced facility in the state with equipment and training resources that small towns like Bedford rarely see. Additionally, establishing a $10 million scholarship fund for children of first responders. Porters shouted questions, but Luke raised his hand. There's something else I want to. Sharif reached into his pocket and withdrew a small wooden box. Opening it revealed the cotton bracelet. Faded and fire damage. I kept this for 20 years. It fell from her wrist as she carried me to Safatito. Me, it's more valuable than any possession I owned. The crowd fell silent. Many wiped away tears. Like to return it to its rightful owner. Luke scanned the faces before him. Emily Sanders, if you're listening, this belongs to you. At the back of the crowd, standing in the shadow of a maple tree, Emily watched in silence. She had come despite herself, drawn by a need to understand. Her past had suddenly crashed into her present. During Luke speak, seeing the bracelet she had made with her daughter so many years ago unlocked something within her, a recognition that perhaps her history wasn't just hers. Anna Morius. The crowd dispersed following Luke's announcement. Emily found herself walking toward the fire station rather than away from Ida's security guard. Noticed her approach. The area is closed to the public right now. Emily hesitated, then slowly rolled up her left sleeve, revealing the distinctive burn scars that spiraled up her forearm, matching exactly the marks visible in the video footage. Guard's eyes widened. He spoke quietly into his radio. Moments later, Luke emerged from the station. For a long moment, they simply looked at each other. The woman who had run into fire and the boy she had carried out. No, both adults marked in different ways by that night. You kept it all these years, Emily finally said, nodding toward the box in his hand. It was all I had of you, Luke replied. Me grandmother said it was proof angels existed. Emily smiled slightly. And no angel, just a dispatcher who couldn't follow protocol. Or the reason I'm alive, Luke said simply, and the reason I founded Security Nitor company motto is when seconds matter. Because you taught me they doth. Following day, Bedford witnessed something extraordinary. The official announcement ceremony for the new emergency center. Beckham, something more, a long overdue recognition of heroism that had gone uncelebrated for 2 decades. Emily, finally persuaded to attend, found herself called to the podium, standing beneath a banner bearing her father's favorite quote, "Courage is fear." Thathis said its prayers. She faced the community that had been her home for nearly 50 years. She didn't do anything special, she began, her voice soft but steady. Just couldn't watch and do nothing. Me father was a firefighter. He died saving children. When I saw Luke through that window, he heard my dad's voice saying, always do right, Emmy. For the first time in public, Emily displayed her scarred arm. These marks reminded me every day that I made the right choice. Never needed thanks, I never wanted recognition, but standing here today, her voice broke as Luke approached, holding the wooden box. This belongs to you, said, offering the bracelet. Emily carefully took it. I made this with my daughter the week before the fire. It was her favorite colors, purple and green. It kept me safe for 20 years, Luke said, like a talisman. Emily smiled through tears. Me father told me once that courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being terrified and moving forward anyway. As Luke embraced her, the crowd rose in a standing ovation. Emily's daughter rushed forward from where she had been seated, joining the embrace. 3 lives connected by fire and fate, be a single decision made in smoke and flame. 20 years before the next day's headline read, "The Angel of Bedford Fire Station Woman Who Saved Billionaire Finally Receives Her Dubit." The most profound moment came after the crowds dispersed. Emily stood alone in the old fire station, running her fingers over her father's name on the memorial. Wallach found her there. "I bought this place for Yah said quietly, but I think it was always. Yersemele nodded. Understanding them deeper than the property transaction, keep what matters by giving it away, replied. Have you ever witnessed Somio recognized for their silent heroist type? Courage if you believe that doing what's right will always be remembered even if it takes 20 years. Yersemele declined. The Aferdo have the center named solely after her instead. It became the Sanders Wilson Memorial Emergency Response Center honoring both her father and Luke's grandmother, two people who had shaped their lives through sacrifice and love. She didn't return to the bakery or the dispatch center. Instead, Emily accepted a position as the community outreach coordinator for the new facility, teaching free first aid classes and emergency preparedness to Bedford residents. Her quiet competency and understated manner made her approachably, especially to children who were fascinated by the story of the fire angle but found in Emily a very human mentor. Each morning, Emily could be seen bringing coffee to the young firefitters and paramedics, many of whom had grown up hearing stories about her father. She lived in a modest house near the station, close enough to walk to work with her now adult daughter occasionally visiting from Boston. Everyone has a defining moment, Emily often told her students. Just hope you'll choose well. When yours arrives in the wall of the main training room hung a frame containing two items. The restored cotton bracelet and a simple quote. Courage is a decision made in seconds that echoes through life. Next to it hung two photographs, Emily carrying Luke from the fire and her father in his uniform, both images speaking to the same legacy of service. During a documentary filmed about the Centera young firefighter recruit summed up what many felt when people ask me what a hero looks like. Don't think of Supermani, think of Miss Sanders making coffee in the break room, scars on her arms, quietly going about her day. Emily's daughter, now working as a paramedic herself, shared her perspective. I talked about that night, but now I understand why she always told Method the right thing and the easy thing are rarely the same choices. Most profound transformation, however, was in Emily herself, woman who had hidden her scars for decades. Wore short sleeves without hesitation. Privacy she had guarded so fiercely gave way to a different kind of strength, courage to be seen, to acknowledge that her story might help others find their own bravery. The 1-year anniversary of the center's opening, Luke visited again. He found Emily teaching a class of elementary school children how to call 911 effectively. Does it ever feel strange, he asked afterward, having people know your story after keeping it secret for so long? Emily considered this. Looking out at the training yard where new recruits were practicing rescue technique was not strange. She finally answered, just different. Like, I've been carrying something heavy. Alanine. Suddenly, there are helping hands everywhere as she touched the bracelet on her wrist, the original safely preserved in its framethus, one a new creation made by local children inspired by her story. Not everyone gets thanked for doing the right thing, Emily said softly, but if you choose right world, remember even one small act of courage can change a bad life. And sometimes the entire world. Share a moment when someone's bravery made all the difference for you. Subscribe to Iron Heart Stories, where courage is remembered every day. Remember, sometimes the gift you leave behind isn't what you do but how you live.